The Russians once again indiscriminately bombing Ukrainian civilians as they try to turn the tide of their failing war. Some G7 leaders calling the new attacks war crimes as Ukrainian President Zelensky asks Western nations for advanced air defenses. The new missile attacks come 4 days after someone blew up the bridge connecting Russia and Crimea. It was a major embarrassment for Russian President Vladimir Putin. He is calling it an act of terrorism. Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for the attack, but come on. If they didn't do it, who did it? And is Putin overreacting? Joining me now, former U.S. Army Special Operations soldier, drone expert, and Fox News contributor Brett Velicovich. So, Brett, what are you seeing here in terms of the Russian response to the bridge destruction?
Right. Well, I think the recent airstrikes, Kennedy, show that Putin can really reach out at any point and press pause on Ukraine's celebrations or any semblance that they had of safety within the capital. But I don't think in the end it changes the course of the war. I mean, Ukrainian civilians are starting to figure out, sadly, how to just live with this new reality of a constant state of fear and go on with their day. And we have to be realistic, though, strategically within this conflict, that the reality is Russia is a nuclear power, and they can put pause on this entire conflict with one single strike. And I believe very soon we're going to see very, more escalation, larger strike, further retaliation coming in the next few days. But to me, in the end, I think these strikes feel a bit counterproductive to Russia's overall agenda, because all it seems to be doing is accelerating the rate at which the international community is running to the defense of the Ukrainians with more HIMARS systems, which were just announced. There's greater air defense systems. Germany just accelerated their planned delivery of guided air defense systems. And the U.S. government seems to be very clear that they should be providing additional weapons at a rapid rate to protect against these exact kind of attacks against civilian infrastructure. So it's kind of backfired, I think, in the larger scheme of things.
So Zelensky obviously is asking for more and more. Does this prolong the war, or does it ensure that it ends quickly? Because it seems as though the more money and the more advanced systems that go into the country, the more Putin gets backed into a corner, and then he escalates. At what point does the escalation reach even tactical nuclear weapons?
I think that's the biggest issue. I mean, I keep going over to Ukraine. Clearly, this war is not going to end anytime soon. That's just the reality of it. And no one, like you said, seems to be working on de-escalating things. I mean, that's the main problem with this conflict as it stands now is we're not really seeing anyone engage in this meaningful strategy towards that. We just keep seeing it build and build. Russia conducts a strike. The U.S. and the international community then pile on more weapons. And the focus seems to be more on military escalation. And that's the biggest issue, right, is, military cargo planes that keep landing in Poland with bigger and bigger weapons. And, Putin and, they kind of talk politically a bit about this negotiation, but they've been trying to negotiate on Crimea since that began years ago, and nothing has come from it. So no side right now is really having meaningful de-escalation talks. At the same time, I also think that the U.S. government is got to start getting involved in this, especially as winter's coming, because I think we're going to see some more strikes before that sets in.
Yes, and they're going to destroy the kind of infrastructure and energy production that keeps Ukrainians warm and alive, and that's why some of the G7 nations are calling it war crimes. So, obviously the U.S. wants to be maverick. Like, we want to be the ones who come in and save the day. But where we're at, it's such a stalemate. It doesn't feel like that is going to happen. So what are the chances that China or Turkey comes in and cools things down and acts as sort of a moderating force? Is that possible?
I don't think China's helping the situation at all. And then Turkey's also selling weapons to the Ukrainians, so Russia isn't too happy with them. But I've also never really been a fan of the U.S. sort of being so vocal and loud about their support and the type of equipment that's being provided. I think we can do it quietly. I think it's too easy for Russia to sort of twist that information about how much weapons and stuff are being provided by the U.S. government domestically with their complete control of their internal media. Right. It's going to be very important, obviously, for the U.S. to continue to support, but I think they can be a bit quieter on this. And the other issue that I really see is a lot of these attacks coming from Russia, it just continues to be on civilian targets. We're not seeing really them strike military targets. That's their entire playbook, is to strike the heart of the civilian population. And Russia needs to be designated immediately as a state terrorist group. I mean, they need to be removed from the UN Security Council.
That's my next question. What does it take? Because obviously these bylaws are so poorly written that if they are committing war crimes actively and in the open, how can they possibly stay as permanent members of the UN Security Council? That makes no sense.
I don't understand it. I can't understand it, because there is clear evidence, case after case after case, of war crimes. I've seen it with my own eyes. It needs to be brought further to light with the international community. They need to show these investigations, show the proof of these war crimes, because people are just tired of hearing about it, but they're not really being shown it with investigators out there. And they need to do that to get Russia removed from it, because it's just going to continue, especially in these occupied territories that Ukraine is taking back from Russian control. They're finding more mass graves. They're finding more repeated stories from Ukrainians who have suffered these atrocities. And that's really the only thing in the end, is if we get the community to just be galvanized around this and send Russia away, so that it strikes them not only militarily, but economically. And eventually, hopefully, we get Putin in The Hague, where he belongs.
Yeah, I agree completely. And at some point, even the state-controlled press and protesters and those who are being mobilized in Russia, they're going to join forces and reach critical mass. Brett, thank you for your analysis and your reporting. Stay safe when you are visiting Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Kennedy.